Hi, the point of this video is to talk about the terminological work that translators do, why it's important, and how we can streamline it or work better in that regard. By the way, I'm doing this in English just for variety. Okay, so terminological work. As you know, that's a big chunk of a translator's work. We not only need to spend time looking for equivalencies, but also understanding the terms. Don't forget that we can't translate what we don't understand, and that means terms, that means concepts behind a word. So we do have to do a lot of research, and part of that research is part of that job is to knowing where to look up words and where to actually quote those websites or dictionaries or books as sources of our translation. Lingua.s is not authoritative enough as a source for my terminological work. Why? Well, because of how Lingua developed. Lingua, I'm going to show you. So Lingua is or was started as a compendium basically of websites, bilingual websites or multilingual websites, where what they did was to put in parallel the different versions of a text that was posted on a website with the other versions of the same website in another language. So they basically put the two together and draw parallelisms between a particular paragraph with its respective paragraph in the other language. And so it shows you that it actually, when you look at it, it shows you all of that in fuentes externas or external sources, and you see, for example, I made a search here, constituency organizing, a search I made earlier, like yesterday or something. I wanted to check what Lingua said, and so I did constituency organizing, and it's what it's doing is it's giving me a paragraph or a sentence or part of a sentence where these two words occur, and next to it that same website in its translated version. The problem with this is that, for example, this one, in the first one, we don't know who did this translation. So in order for us to be able to use Lingua effectively or more wisely, more smartly, is to check where these paragraphs are coming from. So in this case, we see that this one says letusrise.org. No idea what this organization is, if they hire translators, if they use machine translation and put it up there without any editing, or if they use an aunt or a cousin who speaks another language. And so this one, for example, I'm not gonna rely on these equivalents. This one, it's Europa, so I always need to check, before I even check the translation, I always need to check the link. And another tip is that you can actually go to the link. So if you click on it with the right right click, you can open it in a new tab and you can see the English translation where these the English text of where my phrase occurs originally. And I can also do the same for the link in Spanish. Now it's not loading. I don't know. Well, here it is. So it's a debate of the European Parliament, and that's what I was going to get to. If I see Europa l.europa.eu, it means that it's coming from the European Union, most of the time the Parliament, but any other organization from the European Union. And that means I can sort of rely on this one. The European Union has a great and big group of translators, paid translators, very good translators. So I can say, okay, this is what the European Union says, not what Lingua says. So Lingua is not a quotable source. The European Parliament is. So the next one, again, European Parliament. The other one, or European Union. The other one is UNESCO. UNESCO is another reliable source. UNESCO. This one that you see here is taccess-ods.un.org. This is the UN depository of documents, the Access ODS, and it's also reliable. So again, if you see these sources, it's probably an okay source. But again, Lingua is not something I'm going to end my terminological work with. So it's not it's not the end of my search. It can be the beginning, it can be in the middle, but I cannot stay with what Lingua says, because it's not a definitive dictionary. It's just a compendium of texts that were there, that were made. It's not even showing you a lot, actually. It's giving you some of the text that they have. And then they also give you this dictionary, something they added in the last few years, and it's basically what they found to be the most frequent equivalencies considering the database that they have. So it's not something that a linguist or a terminologist decided on. It's just a frequency game. It's okay, the most frequent translation for constituency is circunscripción. But remember, this is the most frequent one. It's not the best for maybe your text. So pay attention to this part, that it's not actually, don't pay attention to it so much. It's actually not that relevant. What we can use about Lingua is by looking at the sources and then seeing if this paragraph or this part of sentence actually applies to the context in which my word shows up, my word, of the term that I'm looking for. So that's Lingua. And then there are other sources like term bases, online dictionaries, online glossaries that are more authoritative, that are more quotable, that I can rely on and use as my sources if I'm questioned about a term, or if I'm working with a colleague or with a friend on a translation, and then we have to decide on which one to use. We can decide based on where the equivalents come from, how reliable those sources are. If you go to Blackboard, the course sites, you'll see in resources for translators here on the long left side bar. If you go there, you'll see a list of resources online, most of them that I posted there for you to use. There are many of them. There are dictionaries, and some of them are glossaries, some of them are term bases, databases. So have a look at them, see what can be used for you, and make a note of them, put them in your bookmarks, see what is valuable. And then, of course, printed dictionaries are very reliable, and not because everyone says so, but because, or because I say so, but because there is a lot of linguists and terminologists working on it for years before a dictionary goes to print. So it's not a capricious thing of why printed dictionaries are better. It's because there's been a lot more work on them. So there's been a lot of gray matter put into them. And then another aspect of the terminological work is to create your own glossary. I'm going to show you how to create one, what your own glossary should have, and why it's important to have a glossary. Well, it's important because it gives you the tools to be consistent, not only throughout one text, but also throughout different texts of the same project, throughout different texts of the same client, throughout different texts throughout the years. So it gives you a way to be consistent. It also gives you a way to record and to log your decision, your decision-making process when you're looking at a term and when you decide to use a particular equivalence. So it gives you a way also to log what you were thinking, but also to record for later use. Because I can assure you that from 3 months from now, you won't remember what you decided to do about, a term you used for a translation that we worked on throughout the course. There's too many things going. There's too many translations to keep track of. You won't remember. So, and then this same word will show up again for the same client, for a different client, and then you'll have to do the terminological work again. So it saves you time. And it gives you that accountability tool that I was telling you about. If someone comes back to you and says, hey, so the client came back to us about this translation, they want to change this term or this phrase for this one. What do you think? And well, if you go back to your glossary, and if you happen to be consistent, to be strict about how you create your glossary, hopefully you will have this word on your glossary and you will see why you chose that term, and it will give you a way to be accountable for your own translations. And also, if you work in a group of translators, having a glossary is a must. Otherwise, different translators working on different parts of the text, or different translators working on different texts of the same project or in the same topic will come up with different ways of calling a term, calling a word, and it will be a mess. It will be sorry about this Argentinian name, but it will be a cambalache. So a cambalache is just a messy soup of things, right? Like a Carnival Parade. Okay, so now glossary. The glossary I shared with you is on week 7. It's a template for you to fill out, to use, to make your own. It's here. It's in translation 5. The instructions of the 7. Sorry, the instructions of the assignment has a link, and that's where it takes you to this. So glossary doesn't have to be really long, doesn't have to be overly complicated. It just has to have a few columns. I like using Google Sheets because it's easy to share with other people, and I also like using Excel if I'm not going to share with anyone, because it's easy to move around the cells when you need to move them around than, for example, a file, a text file, a Word document. So Pages, Excel, Windows Excel, or Google Sheets make a good software for this. So English, my source, in our case English, the source language, the target language, in our case Spanish. Those two are obvious, they need to be there. The definition, I think it's important if it's a new word that I don't know, or if it is a technical term that I'm coming to know now. The source of that definition, or the source of that equivalent translation. So where I found this definition, where I found the translation equivalence. Then you can have another comment for more information or for comments. Sometimes I'm going to show you a glossary of my own, and you can see what kind of information you can put there, but pretty much you can be very, very creative. Glossary is it's pretty much a subjective. If you create your own, it's pretty much a subjective live document, and so you can add whatever you want. It's an important when I say it's a live document. It's important to remember that it's alive. It's going to, you can open a glossary now about, I don't know, social justice, or about medicine, or about legal translation, and you can keep adding words forever and ever. It can be a 27-row document, and in the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, it could have 700. So it's basically you can have it as much as you want to use it. So I want to show you one glossary. For example, this glossary was a glossary that I started for a big project for one client, and I used Excel. I had my English, I had my Spanish, I was working into Spanish. I have my source column, and then I didn't add the things that I was telling you here, different columns, but I was actually using the 4th and even the 5th and even the 6th column for this glossary. Sometimes I chose to put different colors for certain reasons. These were, for example, words that an expert I was consulting with told me, so I would put them in a different word, in a different color. See, for example, I would put here different sources, FAO or the RAE. This is a database, very good database from Canada, the Canadian government. Then see this is a definition, for example. I also have next to it a comment by myself. I said decidí usar canto rosado, so I'm actually logging what I decided to use. I didn't do it this time, but sometimes I actually put the date that decision, of that entry, so that I know that in July of 2017 I decided to use canto rodado and not guijarro, for example. Then sometimes I wrote capítulo 3, chapter 3. Okay, this is where this word shows up in my text. See, sometimes I don't actually say, but I do add the other columns there, or even a comment like no me gusta mucho. Okay, this is my thought process. This is what I was thinking. I probably used this, but I didn't like it at the time. So if I come back to this in a few years and I have a new set of eyes looking at this, maybe it will give me a different option, and maybe I can take this no me gusta mucho out because I did find something that I do like. So another thing that sometimes I add, not in this one, but I do, is adding an image. So if I find something that is way easier to understand with an image than with a definition, I copy an image. I found it on the web, anywhere on Google, and I add it here. I just copy it. Because, sometimes images are worth more than 1,000 words. So I do that. And another thing sometimes I usually do actually, is I have one Excel file for, say, a client or a topic, a very wide topic, and then I have different tabs. See, like here we have different tabs. I'm changing between tabs. So these are different sheets within the same file. You can do the same here. See, sheet 1 in Google Sheets, you have sheet 1, and then if you add here, if you click on the plus sign, it would add another sheet. So you can add as many sheets as you want. Okay, that's everything I wanted to say about working with glossaries and trying to do a more reliable terminological search. And I hope you found it interesting. Bye.